Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Deep Dive. So glad you're joining our fun little study group today.
Great to be diving in.
Yeah, this is for PP 5340, Introduction to Public Policy and Management.
That's right.
And for this Deep Dive, we're cracking open Chapter 1 of your required text, Essential History for Public Administration.
Specifically, that first big section, the meaning of the past for the present.
Exactly. Our mission today, pretty simple, really. We're going deep to pull out the absolute must-knows from this foundational chapter.
Think of it as a shortcut.
Yeah, your personal shortcut to understanding why history isn't just, dusty dates and forgotten facts.
Right. It's not just trivia.
No, it's a living, breathing force that's actually shaping public administration right now, today.
And the book's core idea, which we'll be exploring, is that really getting the cultural context around the American public sector. It doesn't just help you understand the issues in your coursework better.
Right.
Critically, it helps practicing public professionals design and manage programs that actually work successfully.
That's the key, isn't it? Making it practical. We're going to try and uncover some maybe surprising connections, maybe even some conflicting viewpoints.
Yeah. It's not always straightforward.
Definitely not.
Either.
But I promise you'll walk away with those aha moments, the kind that make seemingly dense stuff actually really interesting.
And relevant.
And directly relevant to your journey in public service. So let's get started.
Sounds good. So that initial thought many people have, especially in public administration, is often that history feels, well, kind of like a relic, disconnected from the urgent stuff happening now.
Right, like, why do I need to know about 1850 when my budget is due next Friday?
Exactly. But the text, right off the bat, challenges that. It basically says, hold on, history isn't just useful for public administrators.
Okay.
It's essential. Like, you need it.
Essential. That's a strong word.
It is. Because public administration, it's an applied professional field, right? It's constantly dealing with the real-time issues, finance, org structure, program management.
All that practical stuff.
Right. But the book insists the past isn't just academic. It's a vital part of practical expertise. It gives you a powerful tool for solving today's actual real-world problems.
That's a really crucial reframe. Because that feeling you mentioned, that history seems irrelevant. I bet a lot of people in public administration feel that.
Yeah.
They're thinking about budgets, org charts, implementing a new program today.
Yeah.
Not what happened back in, 1776 or something.
But essential history just flips that script. It argues understanding the past isn't just nice to have.
It's essential.
Essential, and it wants us to explore the culture surrounding and shaping the American public sector.
Okay, the culture.
Yes, specifically focusing on those periods where government's role changed dramatically, big shifts.
And that focus on culture seems really important. It pushes us past just seeing public professionals as, cogs in a machine.
Exactly. Not just machine-like tools implementing policies.
Right.
What's really striking is how their actions are so deeply influenced by everything around them, the political, social, environmental, economic conditions.
So the whole context.
The whole context. They don't just execute orders. They give feedback to elected leaders. They subtly influence policy changes. They bring their professional judgment to daily decisions.
And that's true for everyone, right? Whether you're a political appointee like a cabinet secretary or a career professional, someone chosen on merit for their skills.
Absolutely. It applies across the board.
So it's not just about what they do, but the entire ecosystem they're operating in.
Precisely. The context matters, as the text puts it, profoundly.
Which means the current situation, like public administration today, you can't fully get it without tracing back how it developed.
You have to look back.
Yeah, you got to see how we got here. And the book, it guides us through 4 main eras where the whole purpose of the public sector got rethought.
Right, these big turning points.
Yeah, so there's the founding era and the early years, like 1776 to 1800. The progressive era, roughly 1890 to 1920.
Yep.
The New Deal, 33 to 38.
A shorter, intense period.
Right. And the Great Society, 63 to 68.
And a key insight there is that these eras weren't just about policy changes.
Okay.
It was a deeper thing. A profound transformation in the cultural understanding of what government's role in society even is.
So it's about public perception, too.
Exactly. The book connects the historical events to a shifting public consciousness about what government should be and should do.
That makes sense.
And as the final chapter will discuss, the influence of these earlier times, it doesn't just stop there. It keeps shaping contemporary society, especially from the 1980s onward.
So it's still impacting government and public professionals today.
Absolutely. It's a continuum, not just isolated moments in history.
Okay, this brings us to something I found really compelling in the chapter. This thing called the American paradox.
Ah, yes, the paradox.
It's this core contradiction, right?
Right.
In how Americans view their government.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, you've got this widespread anxiety, skepticism, even outright wariness.
A general mistrust.
Yeah. People dislike government in the abstract. They say it should be smaller, taxes should be cut. They complain about Congress, the IRS, those overpaid and underworked bureaucrats.
The stereotype.
Or huge government programs. It's this very abstract, almost ingrained dislike.
But then, and here's the paradox, you ask people about specific things.
Right.
Specific programs, or maybe their local government workers, or the elected official representing their area. And opinions often flip. Suddenly, they're overwhelmingly positive. People like Social Security, Medicare, the Marines, national parks, state parks, highways.
Things they actually interact with or benefit from.
Exactly. They might complain loudly about taxes in general, but then find it really hard to actually name specific programs that should be cut, especially if it's a program they like or use.
Yeah. Cut waste, fraud, and abuse, but don't touch my program.
It really begs the question, how can these two, almost opposite views coexist so strongly in the public mind?
It's that cognitive dissonance, right, writ large. The book identifies these as two distinct views. First, this kind of cultural aversion to government messing with the economy or individual lives.
Yeah.
It's deep, almost philosophical.
An abstract dislike.
Yeah. And second, there's the experiential view. That's based on personal interactions or hearing about how specific agencies actually perform.
Yeah.
And that view is often positive.
Like you said, complaining about the government while, quietly appreciating that the mail shows up every day or the roads are paved.
Exactly. It's that tension.
And one really interesting thing is how that cultural narrative, the negative one, gets so powerful.
How so?
Well, think about media stories. They often highlight congressional gridlock or bureaucratic mistakes.
Sure, that gets clicks.
And that stuff directly feeds the negative cultural view. Even the source notes, American government textbooks often emphasize things like, the large size and permanence of bureaucracy, its alleged lack of efficiency compared to business.
Oh, wow. Even textbooks.
Yeah, and the use of unintelligible language. That's quoting Goodsell from 2015. So this image gets reinforced constantly.
It makes it easy to dislike government in the abstract, even if your personal experiences are okay.
Right. A person might even recognize the contradiction, I hate the government, but that person at the DMV was actually helpful.
But the cultural view just dominates.
It often does in public opinion. It's more visible, more talked about. The positive experiences tend to be quieter, less important in the big public conversation.
And this strong cultural view, it has real consequences.
Huge consequences. Political leaders know it's powerful. They use it to mobilize support.
Right.
Legislators think about it when they're making policy changes, and citizens definitely keep it in mind when they vote.
You just have to think about President Reagan's 1981 inaugural address.
Classic example.
When he said, "In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem."
That line echoed, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't just a slogan. It really kicked off this whole era of reevaluating government's role. And you feel that impact still.
Definitely. It crystallized that negative cultural sentiment.
So where did this deep skepticism even come from? It wasn't just Reagan.
No. You have to go way back. The book traces it right back to the founding era.
To the beginning.
Yeah. People were fleeing Europe, escaping monarchies, religious restrictions. That historical context, that experience profoundly shaped how they designed American government.
So it's baked in from the start.
Pretty much. And it continues to influence how Americans think about government, about public policy, even about the role of unelected public professionals. It's not just recent history. The book calls it an ongoing feature of the national political landscape.
Okay, so it's always there. But does it ever change or adapt?
That's the thing. While it's enduring, the text says it does adapt. It shifts based on new circumstances, political trends, economic conditions, new technologies.
Okay.
Especially during times of intense social change, when there's collective action responding to huge challenges.
Like what kind of challenges?
Things like economic depression, war,
Wow.
Major inequalities of wealth and power, social injustice, environmental problems, big stuff that forces people to rethink things.
So the relationship isn't static, it gets refashioned.
Exactly. By necessity, by public demand.
And we've seen that happen with specific issues throughout history, right?
Yeah.
Issues that force big changes in what the public sector does.
Absolutely. Think about the push for safe food and drugs.
Right. Or economic support for the elderly, like Social Security and Medicare.
Clean air and water regulations. Civil rights for minorities. Women's rights.
A safety net for people in poverty. Conservation of public lands.
All of those involved huge struggles. They weren't easy wins. There was significant resistance.
But eventually, the successful changes, even the ones people fought against,
They get integrated. They become part of the cultural view, stable features of what government does.
they go from being radical ideas to just expected.
Precisely. It's a slow absorption into the national psyche. A really powerful historical process when you think about it.
It really is. And that sets us up perfectly for the next big section in the chapter, Echoes from the Past.
Mm-hmm. Because the issues today often aren't entirely new.
Right. Despite all the surface differences between, now and 200 years ago, the challenges in public administration today often echo themes from way back.
The text used this amazing quote.
Oh, the one from Caitlin Fitz. It's incredible.
Yeah, describing the British American colonies in 1775. Let me see if I can find it. Here. It's life or death for America, people tell you. Angry debates about taxes, religion, and race relations inflame the newspapers. Everyone is talking politics. Your spouse, your teenage daughter, your boss, your grocer. It gets better. Neighbors eye you suspiciously, pressing you to buy local. Angry crowds gather, smelling of booze and threatening violence. Their leaders wink, confident that the ends justify the means. The stores have sold out of guns.
Wow. Wow. The parallels are chilling.
Aren't they? The fear, the intense debates on taxes, religion, race, the suspicion, angry crowds, gun sales.
It really hits home that maybe the fundamentals haven't changed that much.
Exactly. It's a reminder that beneath the modern surface, some basic human and societal tensions just keep cycling through.
And Essential History uses this idea to highlight 4 common themes.
Right, 4 themes that are super relevant for understanding how the past informs the present. They're like analytical lenses.
And these aren't just for understanding history, they're tools for understanding today. Let's list them.
Okay. First, public versus private interest.
Second, concentrated wealth and power.
Third, the size and cost of government.
And fourth, insiders and outsiders.
These themes, they pop up again and again, just in different forms with different players, weaving through every era.
Okay, let's dig into that first one. Public versus private interest. The book calls it the elusive ideal.
Elusive is right.
We hear public interest thrown around constantly in politics and public management, but what does it actually mean? It's surprisingly hard to define.
It really is. People often just use it kind of superficially to mean whatever policy they already like.
Yeah, makes their idea sound good, like it's universally beneficial. My plan is in the public interest.
It's a way to claim the high ground. But despite that difficulty in defining it, the idea of a public interest is still really powerful.
How so?
Well, saying this is in the public interest carries more weight than just this is a good idea. It forces people to think about the broader effects on the community, the state, the nation.
It implies a bigger purpose, even if it's vague.
Exactly. It's a potent rhetorical tool.
Okay, that makes sense. The chapter then talks about the pluralist model of democracy.
Right, where policymaking involves all these different individuals and groups pushing for what benefits them, their private interests.
So lots of competing interests.
Mm-hmm. And in that model, government's role isn't so much to impose one single goal, but more to provide a framework for discussion and sort of mediate the disputes between these private interests.
Manage the conflict.
Yeah, it's about negotiation, give and take.
And that contrast between public interest and private interest really highlights the tension between what individuals want and what's good for the whole community.
Absolutely. And the text, drawing from Box in 2015, it gives us 3 different ways to look at this idea, 3 perspectives.
Okay, what are they?
First is the aggregate perspective. This basically defines public interest as the sum of the existing views of the most powerful groups or the majority of individuals.
So whatever the majority wants or whatever the powerful groups push through, that's the public interest.
Essentially, yeah. It's a majoritarian view or sometimes a power-driven view. What wins out in the political marketplace is the public interest.
Interesting. Okay, what's the second one?
The second is the process perspective. This one focuses less on the outcome and more on how decisions are made.
Like the procedures.
Exactly. Who participates, what sort of discussion occurs, and how responsibility for making decisions is allocated. The fairness and openness of the process itself is key.
So if the process is fair, the outcome is more likely to be legitimate and therefore serve the public interest.
That's the idea. The integrity of the process is central, sometimes even more important than the specific outcome.
Okay. Aggregate process. What's the third?
The third is the substantive perspective. This one tries to figure out what people mean in a particular situation when they refer to the public interest.
So it depends on the context.
Totally context dependent. It's not a fixed meaning. It shifts based on the specific issue, the community, the values at play. Public interest for infrastructure might be very different from public interest for environmental rules.
Right, got it. Aggregate, process, substantive. And then the chapter offers a sort of ultimate definition.
Yeah, a more comprehensive one, but it comes with big caveats. It defines public interest as the future that a majority of people would choose at a particular point in time, given adequate information and an opportunity for dialogue with others before making a decision.
Okay, that sounds ideal. Almost utopian. What are the caveats?
Well, first, the public interest can, and absolutely does, change over time. What seemed right 50 years ago might not today. Think about attitudes towards highways versus, say, public transit or environmental impact now.
Good point. Things change.
Second, it assumes people have adequate information to make these choices.
It's tricky.
Very tricky. Information overload, misinformation, incomplete data. Getting truly informed public choices is a huge challenge.
Okay, and the third caveat.
It assumes opportunity for dialogue, people talking to each other, understanding different viewpoints and potential impacts.
Also hard to achieve on a large scale.
Especially with polarization and social media bubbles. Real, broad, informed dialogue is tough.
So finding one perfect definition is basically impossible.
Pretty much. But the concept is still useful. The text quotes Cooper, saying it serves as a kind of question mark before all official decisions and conduct.
A question mark.
I like that. Yeah, it's an ideal, something to strive for, a kind of North Star for public service, even if it's always a bit out of reach.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So from that elusive ideal, we shift to theme number 2, concentrated wealth and power.
Ah, yes. A constant theme.
Seems like it. Early Americans, coming from Europe, they really didn't like flashy displays of wealth and power.
Right. It reminded them of royalty, hereditary status, titles, all the stuff they were trying to get away from.
And that feeling still kind of resonates, doesn't it? We talk a lot about equality of opportunity, the idea you can get ahead through hard work.
The American dream idea.
But there's generally widespread disapproval of equality of outcome, meaning most people don't want the government stepping in to control wealth disparities too much.
It's a real tension. And the founding generation wrestled with it, too. They were definitely worried about concentrated power. They knew it could be corrupting.
But
at the same time, they generally expected the wealthy, leisured class to be the ones governing. They thought they were more educated, more capable.
Interesting. So they trusted the wealthy to govern, but feared concentrated power.
And they also feared mob rule. They worried that if ordinary people had too much say, they might push for radical wealth redistribution, taking property from the rich.
Okay. So fear of power at the top and fear of power from the bottom.
Exactly. And that dual concern about concentrated power from any single group or faction directly led to fundamental constitutional ideas.
Like separation of powers.
Exactly. Legislative, executive, judicial branches, and checks and balances.
Where each branch can block the others.
Right. The whole system was designed precisely to prevent any one entity from getting too much control, to slow things down and distribute power.
That's a powerful legacy from those early fears. And we see these shifts in wealth and power causing major changes throughout history.
Definitely. Take the shift from the Federalist administrations, Washington and Adams, 1789 to 1801, to Thomas Jefferson.
What happened there?
Well, the Federalists liked a strong central government. They were even willing to clamp down on dissent. I remember the Alien and Sedition Acts, imprisoning newspaper editors who criticized them.
Wow. Flexing that centralized power.
Big time. But Jefferson's party, the Democratic Republicans, they wanted a much more modest, minimalist national government. They were wary of that Federalist overreach.
So a big swing in the other direction.
Huge swing. The Federalists actually feared this change was so radical it might destroy the new nation.
Seriously.
Yeah. But what actually happened was a move away from centralized power, away from the pomp and dignity the Federalists had brought to the presidency. It was a real redefinition of government's reach.
Fascinating. Okay, let's fast forward. Another big upheaval. The Gilded Age.
Right. Roughly 1870 to 1900, a period of massive change. Shift to an industrial economy, rise of huge corporations,
Often unregulated.
largely unregulated, yeah. And a lot of people move from working for themselves, farms, small shops, to being hourly workers in giant factories.
Often in pretty rough conditions.
Definitely. Difficult, dangerous work, low wages, long hours. And the contrast was stark.
How so?
You had these small groups of incredibly wealthy people, the robber barons controlling huge parts of the economy, railroads, steel, oil, massive monopolies.
With everyone else.
While much of the population was struggling with poverty, terrible living conditions in cities, very few protections.
And Mark Twain called it the Gilded Age, right?
He did, with a co-author
Yeah.
in 1873. The idea was that it looked shiny and prosperous on the surface, gilded, but underneath was a lot of corruption and greed.
A thin layer of gold hiding the problem.
Exactly. And those excesses, that massive concentration of wealth and power, directly led to the reforms of the Progressive Era.
So the reaction.
The reaction. A period where government's role changed dramatically again, trying to address those Gilded Age problems.
Now this is where it gets really interesting for today.
The parallels.
Because the debate over inequality and concentrated wealth is obviously still huge. People talk about the struggles of the middle class, the increasing share of wealth going to the very top.
Leading many to call our time the new Gilded Age.
Exactly, drawing that direct parallel.
And it raises that fundamental question again. Is massive economic inequality actually good for the economy? You know, the rising tide lifts all boats argument.
Right. Or does it inevitably cause problems? Unrest, protest, demands for big political changes, just like the original Gilded Age led to the Progressive Era.
The debate today covers that whole spectrum, from, basically letting the market rip to using laws to limit corruption, break up monopolies, maybe tax wealth more heavily, trying to rebalance things.
And the challenges to equality of opportunity today seem really complex.
They are. Things like rapid technological change displacing workers.
Automation, AI.
Right. The way poverty gets concentrated geographically, poor schools, lack of jobs in certain areas.
Shoring of manufacturing jobs.
And maybe public policies themselves, tax laws, regulations that some argue favor wealth concentration at the top.
So this theme, concentrated wealth and power, it's definitely not just history. It's a live debate shaping everything right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, on to our third theme, the size and cost of government. This one feels like a classic.
An enduring American grievance, as the book says.
You hear it constantly, right?
Mhm.
Complaints about government being too big, sticking its nose into the private economy, into our lives.
And the cost. Taxes, the national debt.
Yeah. There's this really common belief that government could just be run way more efficiently for a lot less money.
But that often comes with a big asterisk.
Which is?
People agree cuts are needed, usually by cutting waste, fraud, and abuse.
The easy targets.
Or by cutting other people's programs, but they almost always want to protect the programs that benefit them.
There's that paradox again. Abstract dislike, concrete self-interest.
Exactly.
Now, to make sense of these complaints, the chapter says we have to distinguish between the different levels of government.
Crucial point. National, state, and local. They operate differently.
And most of the public focus and the complaints seem aimed at the national level.
Right. Because that's what the media talks about most too. The national budget, the deficit, the debt. It feels huge and distant.
And there's a key fiscal difference, right?
Yes. State and local governments, for the most part, have to balance their budgets every year. They can't just spend more than they take in year after year.
That imposes some discipline.
It does. The national government, however, can spend more than it collects in revenue. It can run deficits.
Which leads to that perception that national spending is out of control.
And interestingly, citizens usually have way more direct influence over state and local spending than they do over that vast, complex national budget.
Okay, now here's a part I found really eye-opening. Beyond the obvious stuff government does, like delivering mail or defense, there's its crucial but often invisible regulatory role.
Ah, yes, a hidden framework.
We live in a mixed economy, right? Where government regulates the private sector to stop the worst excesses of a totally free market.
And this role is critical, but people don't always see it or appreciate it as much as direct services.
So what kind of things does this regulatory role involve?
Oh, all sorts of fundamental stuff. Creating the legal structure for business, protecting contracts, inventions, transactions, Without that, commerce breaks down.
Okay.
Limiting monopolies, trying to ensure fair competition, preventing abuse of workers and consumers, regulating working conditions, safety standards for food, drugs, products.
Stabilizing the economy.
Yeah, through things like central banking and government spending during recessions to cushion the blow.
And environmental stuff, too.
Definitely. Controlling damaging effects like pollution, overuse of resources, regulating land development. Basically, setting the rules of the game so the private sector can function without causing widespread harm.
It's huge, but mostly operates in the background.
Yes, exactly.
And if you look at how the scope of the federal government has changed,
Wow.
big transformation.
Early on, the national government did relatively few things. Mail, customs, diplomacy, a small military.
Right, a large standing army was seen as dangerous back then.
Compare that to today. Federal involvement in college aid, Social Security, Medicare, the world's most powerful military. It's night and day.
Completely different scale.
But here's the kicker, the counterintuitive part.
Okay.
Despite this massive expansion, the actual tax burden in the U.S. as a percentage of the economy is, well, pretty low compared to other developed nations.
That surprised a lot of people.
Yeah. The Tax Policy Center found in 2012, U.S. taxes at all levels were 24% of GDP. The average for other developed countries, the OECD average, was 34%.
10 points higher on average.
Yeah. Only Chile and Mexico collected less. Lots of European countries were over 40%.
But importantly, those countries generally provide much more extensive government services, universal health care, more generous safety nets. Right. So lower taxes here, but maybe fewer government services compared to some places.
It's a trade-off. And it's not just the overall percentage. Pew Research looked at individual tax payments in 2016.
What did they find?
A single childless American with an average wage in 2014 paid about 24.8% of their gross income in federal income and payroll taxes.
Okay. And compared to other countries?
The average across 39 countries was 27.3%. So lower here. And in some places like Belgium, it was way higher, 42.3%.
Wow, huge difference for an individual's paycheck.
It really is.
So why is our tax burden relatively low? Where's the difference?
Well, according to Pew, a big part of it is lower taxes, specifically for social insurance programs, things like Social Security and Medicare.
So we pay less into those systems compared to other developed nations.
Generally, yes. We have a different funding model, lower contributions for some of those key social services, and that directly impacts our overall tax rate compared to others.
Okay, which leads us right into the deficit and national debt dilemma.
The consequence of lower taxes but still wanting services.
If we want services but aren't taxing enough to pay for them, how do we manage?
Deficit spending. The government spends more than it collects in revenue.
Has this always been the case?
Not really. Historically, big deficits were mostly just during wartime. That changed with the Great Depression in the 30s.
Okay.
It became more common after World War II, but then it really grew significantly, as the book says, during the Reagan administration in the 80s.
With his tax cuts and military buildup.
Exactly. The argument then was that the tax cuts would boost the economy so much that new tax revenues would make up the difference.
But that's not what happened.
For the most part, no. The result was mostly bigger annual deficits and a rapidly growing national debt.
Do we have numbers on that?
Yeah, for context, the annual deficit in 2015 was around $438 billion, about 2.5% of GDP. But it fluctuates. It was higher in the 80s, almost 10% during the 2009 recession.
And the total debt?
In 2016, the total federal debt was roughly $19 trillion.
$19 trillion. That's hard to even comprehend.
It works out to almost $60,000 for every person in the country. It's a massive number.
But that raises serious long-term concerns, right?
Definitely. The biggest worry is just sustainability. Can we keep adding debt like this indefinitely?
What are the risks?
Well, interest payments on the debt eat up a bigger and bigger chunk of the annual budget. That leaves less money for everything else. Education, infrastructure, research, you name it.
Crowding out other priorities.
Exactly. Plus, there's the risk that investors, both here and abroad, might get nervous about lending to a country with so much debt. That could make borrowing more expensive in the future.
But politically, it seems hard to fix.
That's the core problem. There doesn't seem to be the political will to raise taxes enough to cover spending.
Why not?
Because elected leaders today kind of benefit from the current situation. They can offer popular services and keep taxes relatively low by running deficits.
Passing the buck.
Pretty much. It's deferred accountability. The political cost gets pushed onto future politicians and future generations. It's convenient now, but risky long term.
So when we hear politicians talk about programs like Social Security and Medicare being unaffordable,
The book suggests that framing can be a bit misleading.
misleading how?
While reforms might be needed for long-term balance, a huge part of the issue is often simply the failure of political leadership to realistically address the funding of public services.
It's not necessarily that the programs themselves are inherently unsustainable.
But more that we haven't made the political choices needed to fund them adequately over the long haul. It's a fundamental disconnect between what we want from government and what we're willing to pay.
Wow, okay. That's a lot to chew on for size and cost. Let's move to the fourth and final theme, insiders and outsiders.
A really important and often difficult theme, the ongoing struggle for social equity.
The chapter uses Roger Bettesworth's distinction from 1990. Can you break that down?
Sure. Insiders are basically members of the dominant majority,
Yeah.
people who accept the existing social order because, well, they were born into it and it generally works for them.
Okay, and outsiders.
Outsiders are individuals who, because of characteristics like skin color, gender, national origin, sexual orientation, experience society differently. They see it as unjust, discriminatory.
And this tension exists everywhere, but maybe especially in a really diverse country like the U.S.
Exactly. With its history of immigration and constant demographic shifts, this insider-outsider tension is particularly pronounced here.
Now, the book acknowledges that the U.S. has actually done a pretty remarkable job compared to many places of accommodating this mix of cultures, races, religions.
It has, in many ways.
But there's also this undeniable, often brutal, history of unjust treatment.
Yes, a very long and painful history. We're talking about Native Americans driven off their lands.
African Americans enslaved, then facing Jim Crow discrimination and violence for another century.
Immigrant groups facing terrible discrimination, the Irish, Catholics, Chinese, other Asians denied entry or treated unfairly.
Women denied basic rights.
Mhm.
Homosexuals facing injustice in jobs, housing, everywhere.
And the core struggle for outsiders has so often centered on the basic rights of citizenship.
Like the right to vote.
Absolutely. Women couldn't vote nationally until 1920. African Americans faced systematic denial and restriction of voting rights long after they were legally granted. It's been a constant fight for equal standing.
And this history isn't just history. It's still playing out.
Unfortunately, yes. The unjust treatment of outsiders has led to this continuous cycle of social conflict, activism, unrest, legal battles, sometimes leading to progress, but the tension remains.
And the book points to really disturbing contemporary examples.
It does. Shootings or police abuse of people of color, voting restrictions that disproportionately hit minorities,
The false claims about President Obama's birth or religion.
hostility towards immigrants and Muslims, the Confederate flag controversies, mocking women, gays, other groups in political talk.
It's disheartening. You'd hope we'd be past more of this in the 21st century.
Many did hope that. But it suggests the perceived differences between insiders and outsiders are still incredibly strong. Susan Gooden called race a nervous area in government.
A nervous area.
Yeah, because of these unresolved conflicts and the general discomfort many people have in dealing with them directly.
So where do public administrators fit into this? They don't make the laws.
Right, they don't create laws or make the big legal decisions, but they can work directly on the ground to correct unfairness in how public services are delivered.
Services that might favor insiders.
Potentially, yes. This is where the idea of social equity comes in. It's distinct from just equality.
Okay. Where did that idea come from?
It really gained traction in public administration circles back in the late 1960s, another time of huge social change.
And what does social equity mean in this context?
H. George Frederickson, a key thinker here, described it in 1980 as activities to enhance the political power and economic well-being of minorities.
So actively trying to level the playing field.
Exactly. Frederickson was critical of what he called pluralistic government, the idea that policy just emerges from competition between powerful groups.
Why was he critical?
Because he argued that system inherently discriminates against less powerful minorities who don't have the resources to compete effectively.
Which leads to...
It leads, he said, to widespread unemployment, poverty, disease, ignorance, and hopelessness, even during times of overall economic growth. And he found that morally reprehensible.
Strong words. So he saw a moral duty for public administrators.
Yes. to actively work against those systemic disadvantages.
And how can public professionals do that in
Well,
concrete ways?
While ensuring equal quality public services everywhere, making sure poor neighborhoods get the same level of street maintenance, trash pickup, public transit, decent parks as wealthy neighborhoods.
The basics.
The basics, which often aren't equal. Also, working with elected leaders and citizens on bigger issues like community-oriented policing, improving public schools, which often have huge funding disparities, finding ways to incentivize businesses and jobs in neglected areas.
So practical, on-the-ground actions.
Right. Happening alongside the broader efforts by citizens groups pushing for laws to reduce discrimination, it's a two-pronged approach: policy change and equitable implementation.
Okay. It covers the four themes. Now, let's look at the grand sweep of change. How does the book frame all this history?
Well, it emphasizes, again, it's not trying to be a comprehensive history of everything.
Right, it's focused.
It highlights the key events and periods that really shaped the public sector's relationship with society. And it introduces historian Arthur Schlesinger's idea of cycles in American history.
Cycles. Interesting.
Yeah, Schlesinger wrote in 1986 about a continuing shift in national involvement between public purpose and private interest, an ebb and flow.
Okay, explain that cycle.
He described relatively short bursts of intense national activity, times when the focus is on public problems, collective action, government solutions.
Like the eras we discussed. Progressive era, New Deal.
Exactly. Those might be followed by consolidation periods, where the changes get absorbed, become normal.
And then?
Then, a longer period of private interest settles in. People turn inward, focus more on personal goals, economic advancement, individual stuff.
Okay, a swing back to the individual.
But, and this is key, that period of private interest eventually creates its own problems. Neglected public issues pile up.
Leading to?
Dissatisfaction, criticism, ferment, protest. People start looking for collective solutions again. And that sets the stage for the next major public challenge to trigger a new burst of public action, reshaping government's role once more.
Wow, so it's this continuous cycle. Public purpose, consolidation, private interest, growing problems, then back to public purpose.
That was Schlesinger's model, a fascinating rhythm to American history.
It really is. Now, it's natural for people to think their time is unique, right? Especially now with tech changes, globalization, terrorism.
Oh, yeah. We always think we're living through the most disruptive time ever. Surely these must be uniquely large-scale changes. Or are they?
So are they. The book brings in economist Robert Gordon here.
Right. Gordon made a really provocative argument in 2016 about economic growth and societal change that puts things in perspective.
How did he argue?
He said, basically, there was almost no economic growth for millennia until about 1770. Then, only slow growth for the next century, before 1870.
Okay. Life was pretty static for a long time.
Very static. The really rapid growth, the truly transformational period, he argued, was the century ending in 1970.
1870 to 1970. Why was that century so special?
Because that was the era of the great inventions, things that fundamentally revolutionized daily life in ways we almost can't imagine now.
Like what?
Electricity becoming widespread, the internal combustion engine, cars, air travel, central heating and AC, refrigeration, freezing foods, public water systems.
Huge health breakthroughs, too.
Absolutely. Anesthetics, antiseptic surgery, antibiotics. These things completely changed life expectancy, quality of life, just fundamental changes.
And Gordon's point is that since 1970,
His argument is that growth has been slower since then and more narrowly focused, primarily in entertainment, communication, information tech.
important changes, but maybe not as foundational.
He sees them as more evolutionary and continuous, rather than the great and sudden bursts of life-altering inventions seen in that 1870-1970 century.
So his take is that the changes people lived through between 1870 and 1970 were arguably more significant, more disruptive to daily life than anything before or since.
That's his interpretation. It really helps put our current sense of rapid change into a much broader historical context. Maybe our era isn't quite as unprecedented in its fundamental disruption as we sometimes feel.
That's a fascinating perspective. And tying it back to our eras.
It's striking that 3 of the 4 big eras the book focuses on, progressive, New Deal, Great Society, all happened during Gordon's century of rapid growth.
The founding era being the exception.
Right, which underscores just how transformational those periods were, happening alongside this incredible burst of societal and technological change.
So essential history uses this framework, these eras, these themes.
Yeah, it frames the 4 eras within these broader trends. Each chapter digs into the social and political conditions, the key features of the era, the important ideas for public administration that emerged.
And the writing style is meant to be accessible.
Definitely. The aim is for it to feel more like a class discussion than an academic text, making complex ideas easier to grasp.
What's the book's really unique contribution then?
It's that emphasis on an interpretation of these specific periods that shaped the public sector's role. It connects the dots in a really insightful way.
And the advice for us, the readers.
Is to actively watch for those four themes we discussed: public versus private interest, concentrated wealth, size and cost of government, insiders versus outsiders as they pop up again and again.
Because they're the keys.
They're powerful tools, lenses for understanding not just the past, but your own environment in public service today.
Okay, so bringing this deep dive to a close,
Hmm.
we've circled back to that core idea.
That history isn't just dust.
Right. It's the living, dynamic cultural context shaping everything in the public sector right now. Every decision, every structure, every challenge.
We went from maybe feeling skeptical about history's relevance
Yeah.
to hopefully understanding how these deep historical currents shed light on everything from public opinion to policy debates to what it actually means to be a public servant.
And those four themes, public versus private interest, concentrated wealth and power, size and cost of government, insiders and outsiders, they should feel like real tools now. Tools you can use to navigate and interpret the complexities you'll face.
Exactly. It's about seeing the patterns, understanding the roots, recognizing that so many of our challenges have deep historical echoes. The past isn't just past, it's woven into right now.
So as you go forward from this discussion, armed with these insights, here's a final provocative thought to chew on. Given Schlesinger's cycles of public purpose and private interest, and how these themes keep echoing, what private interest problems are maybe accumulating today? What's generating that dissatisfaction, criticism, and protest right now?
What's setting the stage for the next big burst of public action?
Exactly. The one that will inevitably reshape government again. And maybe more importantly, how might you, as a current or future public professional, spot those emerging challenges?
And be part of shaping that next transformative wave.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.